Raj, thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
It would be good, I guess, to get your take on the market at the moment, the sentiment, the outlook.
We're of the view that 2024 is the first year of the next real estate cycle, and our expectation is that sentiment will improve, but 2024 will be quite bumpy. It's the first year of a new real estate cycle, so we wouldn't expect it to be a very steep rising curve. We'd expect this year to continue to be relatively bumpy, but we can see some positive trends coming along. We feel the macroeconomic picture is much more positive than it was 4 months ago. I think we all acknowledge that interest rates have peaked, and the debate now is about when the first interest rate reduction happens. So I think that as a landscape for real estate is a supportive landscape to start a new real estate cycle.
I guess looking at the living sector, you're obviously a living sector specialist there at AMRO. More of an investor's darling in some ways than other sectors. So what's your take on that?
I think it certainly has been, and in particular European living sectors are getting a lot of attention. I think they're getting attention for the right reasons. Whether we look at multifamily or student housing, the sectors have proven themselves from an occupancy and a rental growth perspective to be very defensive, and I think that stands in contrast to what have been the core sectors in the past. So we're certainly in conversations with investors seeing a lot of appetite for reallocation from office in particular to living and logistics. And we think in this cycle we're going to see that happening at quite significant levels and at quite significant pace. So I think for us within the living sector, there are two positive trends. One is the overall real estate cycle is starting its new cycle. So this is year one. And two, we think we will see quite a reallocation from office into living and logistics.
And I guess you're investing as well across different parts of Europe. So I guess what are you seeing in some of the different countries? Are there different cycles?
Again, there is a disparity, and I think our perspective and exposure to different geographies gives us some really interesting insights. So it won't surprise you to know that we're seeing very compelling opportunities in Germany, because Germany has repriced very significantly, and we're seeing from a returns perspective, and in fact from a deal flow perspective, very compelling opportunities in the PBSA space. Conversely, if we take another market we're present in, which is Spain, Spain doesn't have the same degree of dislocation. So we certainly see some repricing happening, and we're very positive on the Spanish PBSA market, but we're not seeing the same degree of distress or dislocation happening in that geography. And that's a function of Spain having been going into this interest rate correction being much less geared than it was into GFC, and conversely Germany being much more geared. So I think we're seeing the impact of that play across. I'll touch on the UK as well, which we think has repriced and is presenting very interesting opportunities. Our focus there has been the London market. We think London is highly defensive, and we think for a defensive city, global city like London, returns available today are really very interesting.
And I suppose drilling down into some of the subsectors, you mentioned there build to rent, but also student housing. How do you see those? And I suppose also areas like senior living, where we're beginning to see similar models coming through and definitely demand drivers.
Correct, and I think living will continue to become more broad-based in terms of sub-asset classes. So senior living, I'm sure it's not a sector we're active in at the moment, but I'm sure it's a sector that will continue to evolve. If I had to pick a single one of those sectors in terms of what's resonating with investors, I think student housing is getting a lot of time and attention. I think investors and LPs have seen the evolution of that sector in the UK. They've previously seen it in the US, where it's a very mature sector. It's now a mature sector in the UK. And the expectation is that the continental European markets will go through the same evolution for the student housing sector. So our view from the conversations we're having is that student housing tends to be top 2 or top 3 in their wish list of things to deploy in.
Really interesting to catch up. Thanks very much for joining us, Raj.
My pleasure. Thank you.